So, concerning Babylon 5, I have to issue a retraction. It turns out that our producer JD does, in fact, not love Babylon 5. But I was correct 100% that her favorite doctor is Matt Smith. So, welcome to Tuesday Night Torg. I fully expect something to come flying and hit me in the head. Love you, JD. If you've seen the change of venue, we are back. We are back in the studio, and it is so good to be here. We've got some upgrades. Lily is able to join us. And tonight, instead of our usual fare, we're going to do a question and answer because, we're getting back to the studio. A couple of people are missing. We had to set everything up for being back in the studio. Hopefully you enjoy the sweet backdrop behind me of Ulysses products. We've got Torg, more Torg, some Dark Eye. So I am JM, your GM. We will have 60% of the Horsemen with us tonight, but tonight is a special night, and Thursday's going to follow a similar vein. Tonight is an open mic night. We're going to do question and answers. We've got patrons, we've got chat, people who have been sending us questions all day. If you've got questions, you can send them to me, and JD, our producer, I hope will send them to me. That Matt Smith comment may have driven her into a murderous rage, and this may be my last stream. So, what we were asked to start with was a recap of the Torg games up until now, because they're all dovetailing together. I promise. It may seem like I'm a nut job in front of a conspiracy board, but I actually have plans. So, the original studio game that we launched was the Eternity Shards game. We had Anton, we had Archibald Peacock, Sergeant of Foot, a monster hunter from Orosh. We had MC Fang and his human, a dinosaur from the Living Lands. We had several other people. We had Kage from the Pan Pacifica. We had Lapis, whose name should ring a bell, from the Nile Empire. And we had
Imitsa.
We have Imitsa, the elf from Isle. And so the game started off in the Nile Empire with the group discovering a plan by Dr. Mobius to uncover this ancient tablet, and they discovered this ancient map with the aid of Dr. Lazarus, I believe, and they discovered that there was this gift that was gifted to Core Earth thousands of years ago, long before anyone knew of the High Lords, and that this weapon against the darkness had been broken apart and spread out over the world to the places where the cosms would eventually align. There was that's where we first encountered the Frenchman, which was just a great character, and the Woman in Red, who we still don't know who she is. Yep, Archibald Peacock fell hard for the Woman in Red. The group then, after Kage passed, fighting the Frenchman and playing a nemesis card on him, and an inevitable return to ensure that the Frenchman and not himself would return. Lapis was presumed dead. The group then went to Isle and was joined by a bard of Isle and a survivalist from the Core Earth, like a doomsday prepper who also had psychic abilities. And there they found, so in the Nile Empire, they found a necklace that turned out to be a cross hilt of a sword. In Isle, they found the sword in the stone, or at least the blade from the sword in the stone, and they defeated the Welsh dragon thanks to a martyr card. This is where I really started to fall in love with the Cosm cards and the Destiny cards. I am very much a improv GM, so the fact that this game has ways for the players to improv that I then get to play off of, I love. The group then went to Tharcold, and they had just got to Tharcold. We had introduced new characters like Speckles and John's character from the Nile Empire, whose name, I apologize, John, if you're watching, whose name escapes me at the moment. There's a lot to recap. Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up. And at that point, everything that happened last year hit, and we transitioned out of being in the studio, and that's when we started the Horseman game. The Horseman game started off in Philadelphia with the crew that you know. Yes, Lily, the Horseman game. We have Lady Salvo. We have, who is from the Nile Empire. We have Anton, the intrepid member of the race from Tharkold. We have Edith, the monster hunter, who is really the fan favorite, like, I think. And then we had Genevieve, the smuggler from the Cyber Papacy. And they discovered that Lapis was not dead. In fact, Lapis seems to have changed sides and was assembling a Storm Knight team of her own for reasons we don't still clearly understand. From Lapis, from Philadelphia, the group encountered the Frenchman at the Fortune's Wheel. If you are a member of the Iconic Patron, you should just go to the Torg Eternity channel that we have, because Mr. Furious and Restart have done just an amazing job of recapping the game. Thank you to everyone who participated in it. And it turns out that as the players kind of did this, they were able to, as the channel was recapping, they started to put some things together that I thought may have been lost in the shuffle, and so I really appreciate that. Edith was captured by werewolves. The group traveled from Philly to New York, where they encountered some dinosaurs in the living land, and a plot by Lapis to create a Stela. They also they found out their handler at the Delphi Council was actually a doppelganger, who then, they also discovered that dude with from Tharkold with all of the faces on him. That was really weird. And going to the Central Park, they encountered more werewolves, but Edith had returned with a sweet werewolf fur coat, presumably from the werewolves that she butchered and killed and then turned into a coat because she's a monster hunter. The group then went to you guys had a huge battle on the aircraft carrier where the Delphi Council is, because Lapis attacked them, trying to find this strange device, two-part device that the Delphi Council had of Storm Knights who were basically double agents and working in other cosms in an attempt to bring down the cosms from the inside. How am I doing so far, guys? Like this, I feel like there's just a lot of stuff to kind of.
You said that Edith had been kidnapped by werewolves, but to be fair, I'm not sure that any harm came to Edith. So perhaps she let herself be captured by werewolves.
Edith enacted a cunning double kidnapping where the werewolves thought that they had her, but in reality, she had them the entire time. So this encrypted files. V was able to destroy any extant copies. The group were attacked by techno-demons, where they discovered the trope in JM's games that if you get on a plane, it's definitely a C-130, and it's definitely going to be attacked by techno-demons. So, let's see. Then you guys went to Tharkold because you knew that's where some more of this information was. You discovered what happened to the previous group of the Eternity Knights. You were joined by Tyrannic, our newest addition to the group, a Dinos and his pet pterodactyl Peaches, from the Living Lands, who had been working undercover, posing as Lapis's ally, because Sadie.
Were they really just posing?
I don't know. Tyrannic is a man of many faces, or a Dinos of many faces. Yes. And so basically, Sadie, MC Fang's human, worked with Tyrannic and basically ushered him placed him in Lapis's service. He was able to save the group. And the group then made it further east, heading toward the Tunguska crater, because that's where Grigori, the Rasputin's heir, this person who's working with Volkov and Lapis, there's definitely no one. Lapis seems to be on her own side, kind of working with some very shady people, but each of these shady people also seem to have their own plots. Let's see. The group made it to a small village where they discovered something awful going on, something called the Source, that these monks were raising up out of the Tunguska crater and sacrificing it to. And at this point, something very interesting happened. the group split. Half the group going one way, half the group, the other half of the group being Lady Salvo and Anton, going to try and deal with these Kleist monks, and they were captured. And when things go wrong in JM's Torg games, there's only one group you can call. That's the B team. So if you go back and you're wondering, who are these B team? Well, they are a group of rebels without a cause, possibly without a clue, but definitely always rolling glories every time they show up. And so as they travel through Core Earth and all of the cosms, they just leave hope and hilarity wherever they go. The B team saved Anton and Lady Salvo, stopped the Kleist monks from whatever they were attempting to resurrect. The group rejoined up and headed to the Tunguska crater, where they discovered a larger chunk of this source was. Now, at that point, cue the careless whisper, JD. At that point, Tyrannic discovered that this Grigory Rasputin's heir, that's a handsome man. And at that point, Grigory and Tyrannic began an illicit romance, a bad romance, if you want to call it that. And they were sent, Grigory actually saved them, sent them to the Grey Ferret in Orosh, where they were met back up with the rest of the Storm Knights. The Horsemen had a great encounter with the Warden, who seems to have some control over werewolves, maybe connected with all of these other werewolfy things that are going on. Who knows? They defeated the Warden only to find out that the Warden is a nightmare and not so easily killed. I did also forget that Project Doppelganger is what started this whole thing. Something that the Delphi Council asked the heroes to look in, because it looks like people have been replaced with corrupted counterparts, and nobody really knows what that is. Yet, I mean, there's still like plot threads just kind of gathering, like little snarls or tumbleweeds that sometimes blow back across the screen as we're playing our games. If you tuned in recently, that's when we had the time loop train, a nightmare train, where the group saved Wilhelm, who seems to know the B team somehow. I promise there will be a B team episode explaining that. The group then made it, stop the train for now, done, and made it to Chennai last week, where they are planning to go after the Warden, but need to do a bunch of research. And of course, like any good Torg game, it was interrupted by it was interrupted by death cultists, and that's where we left off. But tonight,
so I'm guessing when we pick up Lady Salvo will be in a basket running around the market. We have to find which basket.
Yeah, I'm basically going to have a shell game going on here on screen, and then you're going to have to find out, like, we won't let Ross into the channel.
I'll just let them on fire.
Yeah, no, it's totally fair.
She can survive it.
Whew. So, 13-minute recap of what is essentially a year and a half of gaming. So thank you to Restar and Mr. Furious and everyone else who helped compile all of that. But now we've got questions, and this is actually, we're going to do this on Thursday night for the Fading Suns game. This is a moment where I will still be behind the screen. I will answer some questions a little bit more vaguely if I feel like, no, these are things that are definitely going to be coming up at a later point. But for now, let me pull up my notes and my questions. But let's start off with Becca, who played Lapis in the original group. Lapis, by the way, has disappeared, right? Like, she fell out of the plane. You sort of encountered her at the Wolf's Lair when Lady Salvo, who bears a striking resemblance to Lapis, was pretending to be Lapis, and that's the last that you've seen of her. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure she's, she's just... So... First question. So we have with us tonight in the studio Mark, who has played Archibald Peacock and Anton. We have Michael, who has joined us with as Tyrannic, who has also become, like, Anton and Tyrann. I think everybody's a fan favorite. They're all my favorites because they're my players. And we have Lily, who plays Edith, the werewolf-wearing, monster-hunting, badass fighter from Orosh. That's right. So, first question is from Becca, who started off in our game. She runs our game on Monday night. If you have not checked out her Call of Cthulhu game, on Monday night on the Iconic Production channel, plug. She runs a game every Monday night. You should go check it out. They're running through Horror on the Orient Express. So a lot of the same places my game is going to go, her game is currently going on, just, 90 years later. So, out of all of the people you have encountered in the game so far, who is your favorite villain so far of the Torg campaign, and why?
Mine's an easy one, Grigori, right? Because, why not? I have that connection with him, so.
He has such soft lips.
He's a woolly mammoth, he looks good.
That's right. Yeah, I now I get it.
Yeah.
Tyrannic confused Rasputin's heir for a woolly mammoth, which are indigenous to the northern parts of the Living Lands.
Totally, yeah.
Makes perfect sense. Mark, what about you?
Before a certain part of the game,
Yeah,
it probably would have been a different.
So start off as Archibald. Who was your favorite villain?
The Frenchman.
Oh, good. I love the Frenchman.
Yes.
Okay, why did you like the Frenchman so much?
He was just a pain in the patoot.
Oh, okay.
And then when Kage, played by Christopher, played that card, like, no, he's defeated, because it was, as you know, reality-rated foes are hard to defeat.
Yeah.
He played the card, sacrificed himself, and let the Frenchman live to be the nemesis. You're like, no. And he's still alive. He's still running around selling whatever to other bad people. But since our betrayal, it is now Lapis.
Is it Lapis?
Yes, because she betrayed us.
That's good.
That's right. You betrayed us, Becca.
I happen to know she may be watching tonight, so
She's already on
your chat.
chat.
Lily,
chat.
what about you? It's all the body horror, right? The body horror is the real enemy that you made along the way.
The body horror is the best villain, obviously. Yeah, the faces guy and the can of peaches incident. No, it was originally the Frenchman, and then it's Lapis because they're both so very layered.
I appreciate that.
Because we have the Frenchman as a villain, right? And then we have worked with him in this arc somewhat. So
Yeah, that'll lead into Becca's next question. But first, I'm going to jump over here to Mr. Furious. Mr. Furious asked, "How did we get into this streaming gig?" So I'll give my answer.
I have no idea, but it is a ride.
I feel like, and you can tell me if I'm answering out of turn. You guys are here because you either are in my normal gaming group or friends with people who have gamed in my normal gaming group.
Yeah.
I lucked out. So I know Tim, who is the studio head of Ulysses, and when he needed people to help run a Gen Con the first year Ulysses had a booth at Gen Con, my wife and I went out. And so it was like me and Eric and Tim and Trisha. We were the people at the booth, and the only thing we had there was Dark Eye, and a stand-up of the Gaunt Man. And I cannot tell you how many times Gen Con goers caused accidents in the aisle because someone would rubberneck and see the Gaunt Man, and like people would pile up behind him or her, and they would be like, "Are you bringing Torg back?" And I didn't get it at the time. I never played Torg in when I got into gaming. You either played Torg or you played Rifts. They had sort of similar feelings in the gaming group that I was in. So I was like, "Hey Tim, I really like the Dark Eye. Would you be okay if I ran a stream for Ulysses?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So we did I did the Hidden Knife, which is somewhere still on YouTube. If you Google the Dark Eye, the Hidden Knife, I think it's on the Ulysses channel. Yep. We ran a game and it sort of ended suddenly, and it was several more years we kind of kept kicking around the idea of coming back to streaming, and then it all opened up, and I found the location. We built the studio. Mr. Furious, if I get permission, I can tell you what we're using. I don't think it's a secret, but I'd have to get permission for that. And so that's kind of how we got into it. And here's the thing: I run a lot of games every week. Like before streaming, I still ran games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every other Friday, and Saturday morning. That's still my schedule.
And we had a once a month Saturday game at the game store.
We had a once a month game. Yeah, I have a problem. And so when we started streaming, I just converted my Tuesday and Thursday groups to the studio groups. So that's sort of how we got into that. All right, guys. So this one's from Becca. How do your characters view the world? Thanks, Brad. I know you're on the stream, and I saw what you wrote in my book. How does your character view the world? Is it in shades of gray, or is it black and white? As a Storm Knight, is everything good and evil? Or are there some nuances to it? Good question, Becca.
Edith?
I think for Edith, there are some black and white issues, but as a monster hunter, there are also some shades of gray. Like lots of she's seen too much of the world to think that everything can possibly be simple and black and white.
Okay. Obviously, for me, everything is in shades of gray. Like I firmly believe in that role-playing games. I'm going to share a quote. It's the quote that I write in the front of my journals. It's a quote from Greg Stafford, who, if you don't know who Greg Stafford is, stop watching me and go figure out who Greg Stafford is. The man was a genius, and John Wick, the writer of role-playing games, not Keanu Reeves, says that if you think, I think he's quoting somebody else, but if you think you have something novel to add to the role-playing sphere, Greg did it first. And Greg said role-playing activates a critical human process that has been nearly killed by over-rationalization and materialism. Role-playing is a way for humans to interact with our deep, hidden mythological selves. They're a way to feed our souls. And I firmly believe that. So my games are good versus evil. But no one's 100% either. Like Lapis and the Frenchman, even Grigori, you haven't seen a lot of Volkov, but like it's a spectrum. There are definitely people who are traveling towards the extremes, but there are always going to be nuance. So like good versus evil is very important for me in games, but also making characters that are fun to engage with. What about you guys? Black and white? Shades of gray?
Sergeant Archibald Peacock was definitely a black and white, fight for the queen, for what's right. Anton is all kinds of shades of gray. He wants to save the race. If that means certain sacrifices have to be made to Delphi Council, maybe. That's his goal.
Okay.
Delphi Council is a means to an end.
Okay.
So,
I like it. Tyrannic?
I think, yeah, he, in my opinion, views the world very different. So probably his definition of good and evil are different than everyone else's.
That's fair.
I think if you're like, oh, we're going to go back to the way it was, right? He's not into that because, he's part of that came in there. And, yeah, I think he wouldn't mind, going back to his clan and just thinking about them. But, the war came to him and he got caught up in this crazy journey.
Awesome. Well, let's see here. That was a Becca question. Let's go to some of the other ones. So, Mr. Furious asked, do we have tips for GMs both for streaming and otherwise? Now, Mark, you've streamed some games both here at the studio and from home. Mm-hmm. What do you think and you're a GM, so let's start off here. What's the number one, if you could give one GMing tip to anyone listening, what is your number one GM tip?
For streaming?
Just in general.
Oh, in general?
Yeah.
Be open to say yes.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one, right?
Doesn't mean they're going to fail, or doesn't mean the players get to do what they want, but let them go down that road.
Yeah.
See where it leads. Might lead in their death, but hey, they chose that road.
That's right. You might get attacked by a bunch of things outside of a monastery and get knocked unconscious and have to be rescued by a whole other team of heroes.
I blame Ross for that stupid card he played that did no good whatsoever. Go back and watch it.
It would have.
It gave us a possibility that it didn't matter because he was going down.
For me, I come from a very scholastic and academic background. So for me, it's always I always love research. Go check out Matt Colville's YouTube channel. Check out some of the great books from Kobold Press or is it N Publishing? I think is what it is.
John Wick.
Yeah, the John Wick Play Dirty books. You can if you go to John Wick's YouTube channel, he read the entirety of the Play Dirty first book and gave you, kind of commentary on it. So for me, I do a lot of, and this kind of dovetails into another question from Mr. Furious. I tend to do a lot of prep at the beginning of the game, outlining arcs, creating NPCs, creating sort of the global framework, so that I know how to react when a player plays a romance card, or when a player plays a martyr card, or when somebody does something so wildly that I could never have anticipated it. I like having the background. I want to improvise in the moment, but have a good feel for the background. For streaming, I would say like my number one thing is don't sweat it. We were all super nervous the first couple of months, and JD and I still agonize every week over minor little tweaks to frames and audio and music. But here's the thing. I think, for me, the streams that I find most engaging are the ones where it just feels like you get to have a window into a group of friends who are playing a game. And so as long as you have a good connection, and whatever tools you're using, whether it's virtual tabletops or video streaming or audio, as long as it does what you need it to when you need it to, that's really the most fun that we can have at the table. Restart asked, what was everyone's original Torg experience? So raise your hand if Torg Eternity is your first experience with Torg.
Yeah, never.
Okay. I mean, I was aware of it, Restart, growing up. But again, like I said, so in my high school was very divided in terms of nerd culture. It was Star Wars and Star Trek. Smashing Pumpkins or shoving Pearl Jam fans into lockers. Riffs or Torg. I like literally these were some of the major dividing lines in my high school and college. So I was always aware of it, and I had friends who were very into Torg. I don't think I ever played a game of Torg. I saw the books, but it wasn't until Ulysses picked it up and I had a chance to sit down and look at it that I really fell in love with it. All right, so Becca asks, what's the most interesting thing about your background that we haven't seen yet for your characters? Do you have something interesting that you want to share?
She can't get our secrets that easily.
I know,
No
right?
way.
No way, Lapis.
Lapis
No
is trying
way.
to data mine. But one of the other things I will say for a stream game, and this actually has transitioned into my home game, I used to be that guy who listened to players and go, wait, that's a way better idea. If I just listen to them, they'll think I'm brilliant. But I've actually started to say, hey, if you guys have a really cool idea for your character, like, bring it to me, let's spitball it. I'm more than willing to bring up a story or a moment or an arc, because that's sort of something you really want to see in your character. Now, it never plays out the way they think it is going to. And they're usually upset and happy at the same time. Half-set? Yeah, half-set. I think that's the word we're going to use. But that's another piece of advice that I've actually just recently started doing, and I really, really enjoyed that. All right, so...
So he's been doing it for a while. So if you create a character with nanites, and the nanites go bad, and you don't tell your party, bad things happen.
Listen, that's a story that I will share at some point, but that's Christopher's fault.
Yes.
That is not mine.
No, just letting the players like, oh, that's a great background, and you start tweaking it.
Yeah, you got the fact that also never give JM the amnesia disadvantage, because I will fill the parts of your memory with horrors that will torment the group. So, background. Any
No,
not really?
nothing we can say
Yeah,
in front of Lapis.
Okay.
that's right.
Wow. Becca, they love your character. Edith, anything to share?
No, but I think since we're in Oroche and Edith is taking a little bit more of a central position in this particular arc, we're gonna get more into her monster hunter backstory, because so far, I mean, she's killed monsters obviously, but I don't think we've really gone into it that much.
I don't think so either. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what we're going to do and where we're going to go with that. So Lily and I are talking. All right, let's see here. We got a lot of really just great questions. So Restart said, Torg is more open, it feels like, to hilarity and homage than other RPGs. How do we balance the fun versus the story?
You can have fun.
We know
in-
that Jake don't.
Yeah.
I think you can have hilarity and fun in any game. It's just you have to balance when it's appropriate so you don't break the immersion.
Right, and I try to reinforce the homages and the fun by Cosm, so when things happen that are appropriate in Cosm to kind of toss that way.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I mean, we all just love those parts of games, and so we're just going to keep doing them. So hopefully you enjoy them as much as we do. All right, so Mark P. I'm not sure who this guy is. Seems like a really eloquent fellow. He wants to know. What is my favorite Cosm? And I'm going to turn this into a global question. Haha. So, what out of everything you've seen so far, what is your favorite Cosm? So for me, I would actually say the Nile Empire is my favorite Cosm. That's why I started the game there. Like, I love superheroes. I love the pulps. I love the high act. Like, to me, Nile Empire was the first one that sort of was like, oh, JM, I really want to run something in here. But as we've all seen, JM, I'm talking about myself in the third person. JM likes horror. Like, I really do. One of the running gags in my gaming group is, quick, everybody, we need to do a one-shot of Cthulhu next week because JM needs to bleed off some of his love of horror. So Orosh and Tharkold have really played into that. And what's interesting is I love the fact, and even Isle, I love the fact that the three of them focus on different types of horror, right? Tharkold is really more like body horror, Hellraiser-y type stuff. Orosh is really more kind of classical horror and corruption. And I would say that Isle holds that special darkness, right? The light versus the darkness, the really true good versus evil horror that, and we get to the Cyber Papacy, we're going to see all of James' love of, like, The Exorcist and The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Dracula, and some of the more Catholic versions of horror kind of come into play in a really interesting way. I've got like 30 pages of notes for the Cyber Papacy. What about you guys? Out of the Cosms in the book, maybe ones that we haven't seen yet, because we haven't gone to Pan Pacifica, we haven't gone to the Cyber Papacy. What's your favorite Cosm?
I would say the Nile Empire was very fun to play in because of the pulp theme, superhero. I liked Isle, liked Tharkold. I do not like Orosh, to answer another question. That's my least favorite. Not that I have anything against horror. The classic horror, werewolf and all that is great. I do not like Orosh.
Sam, I am.
We can leave. Even though my first character came from Orosh as a Monster Hunter, played him in Nile, and that was just loads of fun.
What about you, Michael?
So I've only done the 3, but I think Orosh is going to be really fun, and even more so, I think Tyrannic would probably have a pretty good time with the Nile Empire. I could see him. He has a flair for the dramatic.
He
too.
does have a flair for the dramatic. He and Lady Salvo are becoming fast friends.
You can pretend to be a crocodile in it.
That seems to fit pretty well. So that's probably one I'd be looking forward to. And least favorite, probably Tharkold. I don't know. That's not his jam, it seems like.
Too cold?
Too cold.
Too cold. Lily, aside from Tharkold's body horror, which I know just makes it rate really high on the list, what's your favorite? What's your favorite and your least favorite Cosm?
I do not remember that much body horror in Tharkold. I gotta be real honest with you.
Yes.
I think my favorite was the Nile Empire, but I am sure that was colored by the fact that you clearly enjoyed, setting it up for us so much.
Well, and you had MC Fang. And Mark bought you an MC Fang puppet.
I did.
It was amazing.
It was really MC Fang and human.
I
Really.
think we can all agree that is true.
Yeah.
Because Bang had the highest kill list of anybody.
Yeah, there was a running tally. That has been erased. The only tally that we have is how many times has JM almost killed Gemma in the Fading Suns game. All right, so Mr. Furious asked 2 questions that will kind of, I think they were both Mr. Furious, will kind of, are we going to see a resolution to the Attorney Shards campaign? Yes, that is being dovetailed into the Horseman arc. Basically what I did was I jumped to the next piece of the puzzle and then backtracked a bit to kind of get the Horsemen up to speed. So we're going to see those storylines start to dovetail. We're going to bring back John here in a couple of weeks, playing his character from... Simeon, thank you. There we go. It's Simeon from the Nile Empire. We may have a couple of other guests who are joining us. So yes, expect that to happen at the end of this arc. There will be a definite tie back to the Eternity Shards. How the heck does JM find the time to do all of these different streams?
He's cloned. Oh, sorry, was that a secret?
It's when all 6 of me come and just hockey stick you, you'll know why. I don't know. Like this is my passion. Like anybody who knows a lot about me, I'm basically evangelical about 3 things: the Malazan Books of the Fallen, biblical symbolism, and gaming. And those are the 3 things I
Usually all
taught.
together.
Yeah, usually all together. It's kind of where Jackals came from. So I don't know. Like I always have my notebook with me. I'm always doodling thoughts as they kind of come up. That's kind of
His active mind.
yeah. I'm always thinking about the games I'm running. I keep a list of ideas for games that I'm not running because I just don't have time to run one-shots as much as I want. But yeah. All right, so in a Torg adventure, what kind of GM prep gives you the best bang for your buck? That's a really good question. Because here's the thing. Like, I love gaming, and gaming's all about improv and that liminal space between improv and planning, right? Like a railroad isn't a bad thing because, right, roller coasters are great and they're on rails. It's really when the GM comes up with, this is the only way out, and unless you figure it out, I'm not going to let you do anything else, that I think that's when games go bad. The thing about Torg is with the Destiny cards, and with the Cosm cards, and with the Drama cards, and with the possibilities, and with the dice exploding, you can't plan for nearly anything. Last week I had a ton of exposition that I was running through. And then the jump scare card got played, and suddenly we're in the middle of a fight with a death cult that I didn't have planned, but because of the double mishap, I'm like, okay, somebody is definitely following them. It'd be cool if it was like a serial killer or a death cultist. And then the jump scare got played, and I'm like, okay, cool, this is what we're doing.
Notice it was Ross who played that card too.
But here's the thing. Ross gets the why you would play these cards, and he played it at the perfect moment. Nobody's dead yet.
Well, and that one worked out differently because we got the possibilities immediately, right?
Yes.
Yes, we did. And it does make it interesting. The cards are great. It's just we're trying to gather information. It's like, really, Ross? Had to play that just now? Couldn't save it for...
So kind of a follow-up to that was, is it different in person versus stream? I don't think so. Like, the weirdest thing about running the stream is, even when we went online, is how little my actual, I felt like the games changed. Yeah, there was a little bit more technical side of things, but kind of the same way. The nice thing about streaming, Mark knows this secret. The nice thing about streaming is I can have all of my books and can quickly flip through things without my players noticing. Normally, that's the moment where I'm like, I'm going to go get another drink, or I'm going to go take a quick bio break to give my brain time to kind of process through what I have access to. Whereas when I'm streaming, I have that second monitor up and I'm like, oh, yes, this is what is going to happen. So, all right, so we have a question for Edith. Edith's had a lot of NPCs who have glommed onto her, but she's never actually engaged in romance. Is there a reason for that, or is that just has Edith just not found the one? I mean, Tyrannic found several. He's just picking up lovers like fruit from a fruit cart.
Edith has a magnetic personality, as people have noticed. But I think it's her sense of purpose that draws people to her, not necessarily that, you know, she's looking for romance. She just, you know, hey, you, go do this thing for me. And they're like, okay, sure, why not?
Yeah. I like when I saw this question, to me it was like I feel like Edith is that Ronin who's like, all that matters to me is revenge. And basically when it's over, I'm willing to lay down and die and nothing else matters. And Edith is like, I'm here to hunt monsters and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of bubblegum because it doesn't exist in Orosh. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think she's looking for romance. Like, if it did happen, but I think she's too focused. I think you're right. She's, there's too many things going on that she's got to do, and there's never going to be time.
Until she meets the gunman.
Bum, bum, bum.
There you go.
Ooh.
This is a line of reasoning that I'm just going to curtail and move on to the next question. All right, so here's a question for you guys as characters and players in the game. Is there anything that you wish would become a focus for your character? And kind of tied into that, what was the reason that your characters became Storm Knights? Like, what was their defining moment?
For Anton?
Yeah, I mean, Mark, you have the.
Yeah.
You and Lily can
Well.
answer for either of your characters.
Yeah, Sergeant Peacock just came across with the regiment and started fighting, and then was kind of asked to go forth and serve the Queen, as you do, and joined with other Storm Knights to fight back and fight the good fight, as it was. Anton, just when he manifested, he was born of the race, and he manifested in the slave pens, was able to break free and was trying to help others, and kind of got contacted and got pulled into being Storm. Like I said, his goal is to free others of the race. He's ready to go back to Tharkhold and help that more, make that happen. Maybe if he has somebody that can help him.
What about you,
Good
Tyrannic?
Well, so
Two parts. Anything you wish people like that the story would focus more on about your character, and then how did he become a Storm Knight?
I'm looking forward to a Lapis Tyrannic reunion because there's several layers of double crossing going on there.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that would be a pretty fun encounter to have. And Tyrannic, so you know, Rex Delek and the Gauntman are coming to his tribe, messing around, and he's not going to stand for that. And so then he becomes a fish out of water or a lizard out of water, and and then has to deal with all that and becomes some sort of a double agent. Do we lose Edith?
We might have lost Eden, but we're gonna keep going, so we'll get her back.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we'll answer Edith's question when we come back here. So we had a question. Because Torg allows you to do anything, how do you rein yourself in as a GM? Woof.
You don't, just go with it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, if you watched me talk about Torg with my son Zane, this was one of the things that he loves, that anything is possible. Like, I can take any plot idea I have for any sort of craziness, and I can just go and run with it and find a place for it. And I love that. I love that about Torg. Like, if I want to do an Arthurian story with the Welsh dragons, that's the Nile. If I want to go to do like Indiana Jones the Shadow stuff, well, I would have assumed that was only going to be in the Nile Empire, but I got some great Indiana Jones references in Orosh. And so yeah, it's I don't know, like I don't feel like I have to rein myself in as a GM in Orosh. JD, don't forget you're going to want to pull that back and make it so we view everyone. Okay, that's fine. All right, so that's answer to that question. And
I would say it's even easier in Torg that you don't really have to pull yourself back because you can have a nuclear bomb in Isle if you want.
Yeah.
It might not go off. Something might happen to it. But it's not like you're playing a classic fantasy with knights on horseback. And it's like, well, why would we have this?
Yeah, I don't have to worry about sort of the expedition to the barrier peaks.
Yeah, that was
issue in that way. So, Lily, hello.
Hello.
So for Edith, what is there a focus you would want to see for her character? And then how and why did Edith become a Storm Knight?
So like I said earlier, I think we're going to focus, since we're in a Roche, we're going to focus a little more on the monster hunting and how that actually works in Orosh instead of, she's in Core Earth and there's werewolves or, any of those things. But in terms of how did she become a Storm Knight, I think it was a natural consequence. I think she got recruited because she's very good at what she does, and the Storm Knights can use someone who is single-minded.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I like. Like everyone's character. Mark and I have talked about this. Sometimes we feel like not something I feel. Sometimes it has been said to me that the horsemen all have their niches, right? But I love that because it's very archetypal, right? It's Edith is the relentless monster hunter. Anton is this person from the wasteland of Tharkold who's survival and psychic powers. Lady Salvo has what she does very well. But the nice thing about Torg is it's designed to kind of say, hey, pick the thing you do really well and count on the rest of the Storm Knights to pick up your slack. So I really enjoy that about the game. All right, do I worry, Restar, that the B team would play till midnight if I let them? No, I'm worried that I would let the B team play till midnight if they let me. And by they, I mean JD. JD's explained that I just can't do that. So she's got to get back to her Matt Smithing. Just kidding, JD. Just kidding. We all agree that David Tennant is the best Doctor. Somebody, let's go down here. Phantom asks, question for JM. What is the most interesting story you collabed with for players with a dark secret flaw? All right, well, I feel like this has to go beyond just the Torg game. What is my most interesting? I would I think it's the Shadowrun.
Probably.
Yeah, so I was running this game of Shadowrun 4th edition, also known as We Hear You Like Crunch in Your Crunch, so we put Crunch in Your Crunch. And I ran it for 11 people.
There's a lot of people.
It was too much. James' fragile mind broke.
11 people, and we ended on nary, almost to a man TPK. I think one person got away.
All right, hold on. I do have to say, yes, Tom Baker. Tom Baker is the man who introduced me to the Doctor, and so he will always have this of the newest run.
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who. That's right. Possibility, Mark.
Yes!
Unfortunately, you don't have the character.
Oh, we're in Orosh.
So,
That's
that's right. So I was running the Shadowrun game, and two people gave me interesting. I mean, that whole game was just dark secrets
There's a lot of dark
exploding.
secrets in that.
One of the players gave me an amnesia and just was like, I just took it for the points. I don't care what you do with it. She did care when she discovered she was a clone of an Aztechnology scientist who couldn't bring to kill herself, and so released her clone with no memories into the wild to just let the wild kill it. She was the one who started the chain of events that led to the TPK once she figured out she was a clone because she couldn't handle it. They were fighting an AI drug called Silverline, and one of the players got infected, and so it was designed to, like, you had this cool little like highlighter that you could draw silver tattoos on your arm, and it was it was essentially like a it was like Molly. And one of the players got nicked and botched his roll, and so instead of it taking multiple doses, it all basically turned into a nanite hive. And I would start every arc of the game. I don't mean every once in a while. I started every arc of that game, every run with, what are you doing? What are you doing with your downtime? What are you doing with your downtime? And I would get to Christopher, and he would open his mouth, and I'd be like, you're in an alley, covered in blood. All of your ammo is gone. What do you do? Not tell anybody? Okay. And so, we won't get into the other ones because I don't feel like I can share Trish's story there. But eventually, like, Christopher's character at the climax of the fight with this AI put his assault rifle to the back of Mark's character's head and went full auto and just chunky salsa Mark's character's head.
Mainly because none of the NPCs could kill me.
That's right, none of the
Face
NPCs.
adept.
That's right. So those were my favorite sort of dark secrets. There have been a couple other ones.
The chat knows.
What?
You have the most vivid descriptions. Just saying.
It was shared.
It was shared? Okay,
was
yeah.
shared.
My wife became a vampire in that game. Yeah, so like, here's the thing. I love working with dark secrets, and I will take a lot of input, but if you just hand me a dark secret and say, I don't care, I just took it for the points, I will make it the darkest of dark secrets, and it will just not be good. So let's see here.
But it'll be fun. I'm telling you that.
So I'm gonna adapt. So we have Zero Earth Element asked, what is your character's most interesting point from your point of view? So like, what is the coolest thing about your character from your point of view? That's a good question.
For Anton, just setting stuff. That's the other thing when you run a game on stream, you have to really set what level of adulthood it's at. We're at PG-13, so
Yeah.
the cool stuff he does.
Yeah. Shiznit?
That he setting stuff on fire. I think
That's all right. What about Tyrannic? What's yours? I mean, aside from the fact that you have one of the most powerful people in Darkhold pining away for you, writing horrible Russian poetry, which I will share.
I would love that.
Online.
Yeah.
double
He, by the way, Tyrannic's waiting for another letter from Grigori.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry. I'm gonna put a note here to bring my
I'm-
secret stash of Grigori love letters in next week.
I'm ready. Yeah. Well,
only if they're in Cyrillic.
That's right.
Gotta learn a new language.
That's right.
in a
Sorry,
week.
Mike.
Well, so he's got magic abilities, but they're miracles, right?
Mhm.
So, Dinosaur Jesus is real. So deal with that theologically.
You say miracles. Some of us call it voodoo, but that's
Well,
okay. Not to your face.
I'm just
because
saying,
you'll
Dinosaur
bite
Jesus
it.
is real, and nobody else cares, which is kind of
No, the
surprising.
chat cares.
Okay.
The chat cares a lot.
Oh yes.
What about you, Lily? What's the coolest thing about Edith in your mind? Like, just when you take a step back and you're like, damn, Edith is cool. What is that thing that pops into your head?
Well, I personally love the image that Simi of Doom made for us, because I didn't give her much to go on at all, and she drew the perfect Edith. It's magnificent. But I would have to say her duster, right? Because it's not just where it's also other monsters that she has killed.
That's right. Except for that one piece of vampire that you keep having to replace because every time you go into the sun, it bursts into flames.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just, I haven't found a treatment for it yet.
And Restart, I do hope someday that V and Shelly not only exist in the same campaign, but that I get Maddie to play both of them at the same time.
Oh my god. Yes.
Hashtag GM goals. All right, so Becca wants to know, what's your favorite Destiny card to play?
Ooh.
I'll tell you which one I hate. I hate Opponent Fails. Because it's usually when I'm like, wow, balls.
Whew. If you have one, you can go ahead. I gotta think.
Well, romance is, hands down fantastic. On top of
You get a
Nemesis, too.
lot of mileage. Like Tyrannic gets a lot of. We're just gonna call that the Tyrannic card.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, because I had that card this session before, and I was this close to playing it on the Russian grandmother in the middle of nowhere, and that would have been an interesting subplot too. But I'm glad I saved it for Grigori.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you,
I'm
Edith?
gonna cheat a little bit.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Cheat away.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones that will just give you extra points when you roll. What is the card that allows you to pick up a card that was recently dropped?
Master Plan.
Yeah, that one's
That one feels
think-
very Edithy.
yeah. It's very opportunistic, and there's not a lot of them, as opposed to like hero or action or willpower.
Yeah, where you're gonna see a lot of those come through. Yeah.
I would say I probably have two, and that would be Glory. Not that I ever get the Glory card. I want to say Edith has
Lily.
Lily has
Lily has gotten more glories,
Yeah.
I think, than any player in any Torg game that I've run. And then what else? You said two. Glory's just a great card.
I think it was seize the initiative, which is great in common when you get that card that's perfect for the group. And Jim wants to flip, and you're like, no, I think we're gonna keep that.
We're gonna keep that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one's great.
Those are good ones.
Idea is good too, because if you're stuck
Mm-hmm.
Go with low.
or yeah.
I love that one just from a jamming perspective as well. Like that's one of my favorite things about Call of Cthulhu, where you can be like, we're stuck. I'm gonna make an idea roll, and you're like, okay. Like, I always tell new players, your character knows more about the world than you do. Always ask me, what does my character know about this situation? And so I love that the idea card exists so that players can go, yeah, Tyrannic is way smarter than I am. What does Tyrannic know? Mr. Furious, Mr. Furious asked, I don't use, you don't use VTTs like Roll20 for card and character management. Why? It is very helpful. I agree. We run some of our games. We do a lot of games with virtual tabletops. I love using Fantasy Grounds. It's probably my number one VTT. I know Mark has really fallen in love with Foundry,
Yeah,
for
Foundry.
for Dark Eye.
Yep.
For us with this game, because we play in the studio, or that was the original goal, everybody has their own copy of the drama deck, and everyone has their own copy of the Destiny cards and the Cosm cards. And so when we transitioned out of the studio, it was just easier to, we didn't know how long we were going to be out. So we sort of kept kicking the VTT can down the road. And it came to the point that I think I talked with a bunch of the players, was like, would this help or would this hinder? And most people were like, I already am like focused on the screen. I've got my character sheet. Some of you have the chat up while you're playing. To add one more thing especially for people who only have one screen or who are running off an iPad or something, it just felt like it was going to add a significant overhead to resource management that people were already kind of like, this works for us. And now that we're back in the studio, it's great because I can just toss cards. I can show cards to Lily, or she's got the cards in front of her, so I can say, hey, here's one that you get to use. All right, Rothagy asked, what beast or villain made you take it seriously enough to pause and wonder if one of you was not going to make it out?
When we met the Red Dragon of Wales, I was like, oh, this is a TPK.
I thought it was going to be a TPK too.
It's
I
a
had
Torg.
all of those great descriptions.
It was
I
Torg,
had,
right?
yeah, it was Torg,
Yeah.
and then Shawnee.
Was it Torg or Shawnee's? Micah's or
It was Shawnee's character. She
Okay.
played the martyr card. It's like, I
Yeah.
killed the dragon, and it was like, well. And yeah, Greg, I agree. Like, that is also one of the things that's great. So first, we got some comments from the chat. Yes, Greg, I do like opponent fails, because it does give them a sense of security. I also like to play up how much I hate the card in the moment, because I feel like it makes them feel like a hero. Rothagy says he loves the romance card until his daughter played the card. That was a great scene in that Torg game, because everyone else was uncomfortable, and it was just delightful. One of us did. Yeah, Mr. Furious points out one of you didn't make it out of wins. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, but I thought when we couldn't stop the dragon from coming out, like, oh, this is going to go really bad.
What about you, Michael and Lily? What was there? Was there one fight that kind of springs to mind as when it started? You were as like, well, one of us isn't making it through here.
What comes to mind is the rat monster where Ross blew up the stove and giant explosion. I'm like, are we just all dead?
I remember that. Yeah.
It's like, okay, that was fun. I guess we're all dead now.
What about you, Lily?
The first one that I can remember is the one in the Nile Empire. We were at a dinner and there were some twins there, and
yep, and all of the Rocket Rangers came in, or the flying the elite stormtroopers, and then all of there were several super villains who were in that fight. I remember that one.
The twins are creepy.
Yeah, but to be real honest, I honestly thought that you were going for a TPK the first time we were on the train.
The look on everyone's face at the end of that session, right before I did the time reset. Like, I was sitting here. I think I was running here at the studio because my internet at my house was out. So I had everyone here on the screen, and I could just see all of the emotions, and I'm like, all right, now you got
Michael.
Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, how are we gonna tell Michael that JM butchered Peaches and we made him fly around like a dead bat?
It's like, this is what I get for missing.
That's
right?
what you get for missing,
Yeah.
apparently. So Mr. Furious wants to know if the Eternity Shards and Horseman arcs are going to merge. How are you going to manage players with multiple characters? Well, I've already come up with that. So basically, what's going to happen is I'm going to give Mark the option of which character he wants to play. I think that's the only person who has two characters, unless Lily decides that she would rather play Sadie as opposed to Edith. My guess is that chance is low, but you could correct me right now here, live on stream.
Well, Sadie's not with the other team anymore because I moved, so Sadie had to leave the group originally, so no, I would rather play Edith.
Okay, all right, so there's our answer. But I do, the real question that you have to ask yourself, Mr. Furious, is what am I going to do when I've combined both of those arcs, and then I also want to bring the B team in for a climactic arc finale? How am I going to handle that? I don't even know. If you have a good answer, I would appreciate it. All right, so Becca wants to know if you were trying to tell someone about Torg and they knew nothing about it. Say, for example, you're trying to recruit a new Adinos player for your game. How would you pitch Torg to somebody who has never played it before?
Sorry, I can't do that right now.
Wasn't asking you. Watch. Gotta get back in the habit of putting that in theater mode.
I don't know. I played a lot of games, so each one has its own little spin and why I like it. I don't know. How did you pitch it to Michael?
I didn't. I think Becca pitched it to Michael.
How did it get pitched to you?
What's the line about Die Hard as a documentary? I think that's
Yeah,
what she said.
that was actually given to me. I want to say it was either by Ross or Daryl the second year we were at Gen Con and we had the Torg books, and I'm like, guys, I don't know anything about Torg. Give me the elevator pitch. And it started with, in a world where Die Hard is a documentary and not an action film. I'm like, okay, cool. I've glommed onto that.
Yeah, which is pretty accurate. Right?
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, I mean, it is a high action, high drama game. What about you, Lily?
It's the way that I explain it to folks, because people ask me to do things and I'm like, I'm kind of busy, and they're like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, well. the thing that I pitch is that it's a lot of games in one. You're not just play. I mean, it's all got the same system, right? But you've got the Nile Empire where everybody's an action hero, and you have Poor Earth where it's a little more even ground, and you have Orosh where you're at a disadvantage, but you're fighting the good fight, and so there's really something for everyone.
Zero Earth Element said the key to that situation is he was in a similar situation where he had to cut from scene to scene with the different characters. And I think I have definitely started to use more cinematic, like in the genre of cinema terms when I describe, all right, we're gonna wipe from this scene to another scene, or everything fades to black and then we zoom in through the window. Like, I think jumping from scene to scene is a great way to handle like a large group like that. Restart's like, hey, does Zane's exuberance inspire you? Yes, 100%. Like the fact that my son loves this so much, I can't not love it even more. We're working on the Gospog video. The next Zane Talks Torg video will be coming out this week or next with us talking about Gospogs and why they're just awesome. All right, this question was from David. Lily and Michael, you guys are basically like very new to Torg.
Yes.
Michael is the newest. Mark and I played a little bit before we started in the studio. What do you guys think of the game? Like, what do you like about it? What do you think about it? Michael, you have a background where you've played basically D&D before this. Lily, you've played in a number of my games. You've played Jackals and 13th Age and Dark Eye and Torg and Fading Suns. So, all right, just to kind of give a framework. All right, what do you guys think of Torg? What do you like about it?
The exploding dice, and you're not making a straight D20 roll. You're making a modifier roll. So you're as good as you are, and you can put your points wherever you want them. And the dice are going to impact that, but they're not going to determine, how good you are.
Yeah, that was also something that was explained to me. That the goal is that the D20, on average, has a very minor effect on the skills. But even when you roll poorly, or you roll well and you want to do better, you've got those possibilities, you've got those cards. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I really like. I mean, with the different realms, it just keeps things fresh, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if Gandalf was in 007 movies, right? Like that's kind of a fun thought process.
Yeah. Restart said Mr. Furious. Sorry, Mr. Furious said in the chat. His pitch is that playing Torg is playing the movies. Any character you want from any movie, and everyone else has the same options, and I love that. All right, players. Question from one of our people. Do you consider the cards first, or do you just wait and see when they'll work? Like when you get your Hand of Destiny cards, you're like, oh, I'm going to try and wait for X, Y, and Z moment, or do you just sort of play by the seat of your pants?
It depends on the cards. So like I was saying earlier, action, hero, and willpower, there's a bunch of those, and the likelihood is you'll get them again. But romance, I think there's only one per deck. Idea, there's not that many. So it depends. I had the idea card that I played when we were in the Cur, and I knew that I was saving that to be played to get us back out, because I was concerned that was going to be the hardest part. But everything else, we were saving the romance card as a last ditch. Oh, like nothing else has worked and we're all gonna die. Resort. So.
Yeah. What about you, Michael?
But yeah, see, even with the Cosm cards, like Sinister Secrets, I think is what it's called. It's like, okay, I'm gonna save this one for when I really want that information, right?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Ross would say the same thing. Like Ross, I mean, maybe not. Like Ross plays pretty tactical with his cards. Like he'll go all in and do critical moment. He'll play again. That I cannot stress that jump scare was perfectly timed in my mind. So for me, one of the questions that was directed at me was, what would I play? I got to play in Torg. and I had to think about this because like my knee-jerk reaction is, well, obviously a two-fisted pulp hero from the Nile Empire, and I still think like 90% of the time I'm going to start with that. But I really like the aspirants in Tharkold. Like I think playing a reformed techno demon, a techno demon who is just started to understand hope. You know, I got to try and play that a little bit. The Pazuzu got
Murder.
brutally gunned
so
down.
That's the hard part about creating a character is all of the cosms sound so cool. All of the characters that you could play are so cool, and so it really depends, kind of on what are other people playing? Are people more decisive than I am?
Now, I got a question for Mark from the chat, as I gave Lily well, there we go. That may be your answer. I gave Lily the option that if the stream, like when the two arcs combined, is she going to play Edith or Sadie? And she's very much on the Sadie or the Edith camp.
Yeah.
Anton or Archibald?
I'd have to, since we're more advanced now.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to look at Archie and add the experience to see how I could take the character to see if it would be interesting. I think I'm probably more interested in Anton just because of the psychic abilities. You never have enough XP because I have nothing in telepathy. I haven't taken any of those powers, and there's a lot of cool powers, but it's a perk, and then you got to put points because look, you need to have 16 before you can take that power. So I have lots more XP to get any of my telepathy stuff. So I'll probably stay with him just because I want to expand some more stuff. Archie's pretty bad, but like you see what he did with her bolts, the same thing. My bullets,
Yeah.
the magic bullets, holy water, sun.
So you're saying that you'll stay with
I'll probably stay with Anton, but I would have to advance Archie to see how he would develop. What perks he would
or
take.
hypothetically, if the B team needed support.
Oh yeah, as soon as he comes out of his convalescence, because you tortured him. Thank you, Lapis.
I did not torture him. The wolf tortured him.
Because he was betrayed. I'm looking at you.
Greg, thank you. Greg just said, all right, we're going to see if we can make playing an aspirant or a Nile hero happen in some future Ulysses session. I would love that. I have several voices in mind already. All right, so, all right.
What does Pazuzu sound like?
No, we'll come to that later. So the question from Becca that we're going to ask, Becca's got two more questions. I'm trying to like jump around between everyone. Lily and Mark, you've played from day one. Lily had a little bit of an interruption. Michael, you kind of came in midway through the Horseman arc. What do you think? What is your theory about where the story is going? That's a good question. Like, what do you think is going on? Like, what do you think is being set up here for?
Oh, what? I haven't really pondered that. I'm working on kicking them all out and freeing my people. Death of the Gauntman, if it can be killed. Maybe just banished back to where it came from.
Okay.
I don't know. You guys have a theory on the grand scheme?
I don't know. Like I said before, like if the goal would be to just take everything away, Tyrannic probably would have some issues with that. So
Yeah.
hopefully there's not a moral dilemma coming. I don't know.
So, you do remember what you were before you were in Dinos?
Well, no, he was in a Dinos. A Dinos are like.
Yeah, I'm saying you didn't like change.
I
No.
came over.
You
Yeah.
were like a car salesman. You
Yeah.
change. You're like, I like this more.
Yeah, no, they're like the race. They came in.
Yeah. You don't want to go back to
Well,
your land?
You'd have the same problem then too.
I don't have a problem staying in Earth.
Okay.
I just want my people to be free because they're slaves of the techno demons.
Okay.
So that's I don't want us. Yeah, let's all go back to where the techno. No. Techno demons go out. We'll just stay here and we'll make Russia a nice place to live
Okay.
in. Clean all the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start gardens.
I could see that. Like if
Communes.
me and Grigori wound up at a resort in Mexico at the end of this.
Yeah, I mean that's So I will just let you guys know, one of the things I always do with my campaigns when they end is I let you narrate your character's epilogue.
Okay.
So kind of keep that in mind. Restar asks, is Lapis a time-displaced Lady Salvo? And the answer to that is...
We're going through a tunnel.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We went through a tunnel, Restar. I hope you got the answer that you were looking for. All right, so all the ampersands, which is a great name. I'm just going to toss that out there. I used to live on a street called Ampersand, and a Rob Hainso, got to make sure I pronounce his name correct, was like, of course you do, because, right, Dungeons and Dragons. It's the ampersand. He said, for Lily and Michael, or they said, for Lily and Michael, the Living Land characters have the largest axiom difference from just about everywhere else. So how do you approach playing a character that doesn't understand really what's going on when like, one of my favorite moments from this game is where Genevieve has to essentially dumb down the cur to Edith and Tyrannic. Okay, no, it's not. It's like a dream that we all share. And it was like, that was perfect. So how did you, like, Sadie? How did you approach that as Sadie Lily? Michael, how do you approach that as Tyrannic?
It was less difficult for Sadie because we were in the Nile Empire, and so there was a big difference in axioms, but it wasn't as large as, for instance, Clarkhold, or even Core Earth, I think. So if you'll recall, I mean, she was really freaked out by the Amiza. Mark?
Mm-hmm. The elf?
Yeah, the elf. She was really freaked out by the elf and the magic and the. She did not know what was going on, and so I approached that as, you know, I mean, so she was a character who had been from Core Earth and had been, you know, changed with the Living Lands, but she had some vague memories, but she was just wildly unprepared for any of the technology that she encountered.
Let's see.
What about Tyrannic? I feel like Tyrannic is growing. So don't forget, there's that perk that allows you to raise your axioms as you sort of become more comfortable with things. But
yeah, well, that was my dilemma because, you know, he went to Lapis's henchman school. So how, you know, it was always how much did he learn in henchman school?
right, and it's usually an extension course. So you got really lucky to get into that program when you did.
Well, we met him on a helicopter,
Yeah.
right? He can drive, but can he read, right? So there's all sorts of questions about training that I have to stumble through. So-
We were like, hey, welcome to Torg. Here's a cliff. Go!
Yeah, right.
Bye, Tyrannic.
I think he can read. I don't know, but
That's up to you, man.
yeah. So it was kind of nice though when Edith had to dictate the love letter though, because I think, like, you know, right, why not bring
Yeah,
it
that
forward?
was precious.
So,
All right, so let's see here. Restar wants to know who is Wilhelm. That will be answered in the next B Team game, Ben. But I will also say
Wilhelm is the nightmare.
Wilhelm is Murdoch, and that's where I'll leave that particular question. All right, so we've got two more. Well, first of all, will Tyrannic betray everyone? I mean, it's anybody's guess at this
does
point.
he know?
I do think that a Garanik, the shipping of Gregory and Tyrannic destination wedding would make an amazing epilogue. Right on the edge of the source, would be great in the Tunguska crater. So Zero Earth Element asks, hey JM, what is your favorite part of each character and why? That's a tough one. All right, so one, I love that everyone has their niche and everyone has their thing that they do really well. Again, I cut a lot of my teeth in gaming with superhero games, so I'm used to this idea of this person's the brick, this person's the speedster, this person's the blaster, right? So like everyone had their roles, and I love that we kind of lean into that with Torg. But like, let's kind of go through out of the original group. Do we want the original group or just the current group?
Yeah, let's do the current group.
All right.
I don't know if a lot of people knew the original.
The original, if you guys want to hear about the original group, I can do that. But we'll start with the Horsemen. Lady Salvo presents the same challenge to me that Mark's characters do in Shadowrun. How do I make something challenging and interesting for them while not killing everyone else? But because of the nature of Torg, it's a lot easier to balance that.
Sure.
I feel like Lady Salvo, I love the drama that she brings to the table. Like, Ross really portrays her as a pulp hero from the Nile Empire who never forgets that no matter where they go, they're bringing a little bit of the Nile Empire with them. Anton, you have brought the survivalist. Like, I love Anton's sort of very bleak outlook, as well as, well, when in doubt, fire solves basically everything. Tyrannic and Grigori, I don't think I need to say anything more. And I love, like, Lily, like, everybody plays different characters in all of my games. Like, Mark plays in a lot of my games, and all of his characters are different. Sadie is not Edith, is not Perpetua. So I love that Lily kind of brings a different personality every time we play, but, like, the whole group, Edith has become an anchor.
Remember Ghidorah?
I do remember, yeah, I remember Ghidorah as well. I remember Duration the Hammer. So I love the fact that like Edith and Genevieve have become sort of the bedrock characters of the game. And again, Maddie just brings with Genevieve kind of a very bubbly joy to the cyber papacy that helps lighten some of the more darker.
That's not what it's
stones.
like?
No, wait till we go to the cyber papacy.
That's what Anton's thinking. Like, we need to go there because
it sounds
this
great,
is
right?
what these people are
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Maddie's character in the B team, Shelley. I love the strict Puritan character that she's portraying. I also adore Malachi and Alistair. Like the fact that they're both crazy, kind of in their own unique ways. Phantom's character with the very thick New York accent, and he's always coming up with crazy science to solve a problem. And then when Ben plays his monster hunter, the fact that he is very much the tally-ho monster hunter, where Edith is the grim, I will bring you to just, I am the knight, right? It's sort of like Michael Keaton Batman versus Adam West Batman. They're both monster hunters. They're both technically Batman. One of them is far more serious of a character. Maybe Christian Bale's Batman is a lot more closer to Edith. But I still think that Ben's Monster Hunter is 100% the Adam West Monster Hunter. I think I covered that's the group there. All right.
I kind of picture Edith more of a Van Helsing type.
Yeah, I do like the fact that when given the choice of taking a Monster Hunter rifle, she immediately was like, well, can I do a crossbow instead? Yeah, sure. Like, all right, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so I think this will be our last question. And I love this question. We're going to end with Becca. So this is for everyone at the table. First of all, thank you to everyone in the chat for all of these great questions. This was just a lot of fun. We're going to be doing this again on Thursday with our Fading Suns crew because we just wrapped up an arc. We're going to start a new arc. We're going to have everyone here at the studio. Lily, still just, we got this giant monitor that Lily's on. It's awesome. If you could have anyone in the world, celebrity, friend, living or dead, join the Torg game, who would it be? Right? It's a good question.
Join as a player.
Join as a player, like
Oh, okay.
playing with the game. If you could have anyone who would it be?
Probably Mark Twain.
Ooh, that's a good.
Nile Empire quips. He's got them,
That's,
right?
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a good answer. I had to pick just one, Becca.
Robin Williams.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
Oh,
I don't know that I could keep up with Robin
Yeah, it
Williams.
would
Like,
just-
Yeah.
What would he play?
everything.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah, it's just like
6 characters.
Yeah, 6 characters playing them all at once, all with different voices.
Yeah.
What about
yeah,
you?
I was trying to think of somebody who does like a variety of characters. Robin Williams is a good one. Oh, I just don't know.
There's plenty of people from those other channels that you don't want to watch. So ours is better.
So I like if I had to pick one I mean, if we go living or dead, I don't know that.
Oh, Greg Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Stafford would be amazing. Like, probably high on my list. John Wick, the game designer, I think it would be amazing to have him come down and play. If we're going celebrities, like I feel like Zachary Levi would be a fun person to just hang out with at the table and play. Steven Erikson from the Malazan series, like the writer, I think he would just like Malazan started off as his role playing game, so I feel like he would just be
You'd have to play because if he GM, we'd all be dead.
just dead over and over again.
Yeah.
What about you, Lily? Got anyone in mind?
Oh, I'm gonna say John Malkovich.
And then, but what about the people who crawl into his head and then are being John Malkovich?
Right.
Right? I mean, we can get layers deep there. All right. Well, let me ask one last question then. Do you guys have any questions? Aside from why is our producer so awesome? Because really,
How do we kill a warden?
you're gonna have to actually do the
Oh,
research.
okay.
Like here, it's all right here, Mark.
Yeah, I know.
If you just
I've already got the questions down and I filled
Okay.
in stuff that I'm thinking of. So.
all right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a Torg Tuesday question and answer session. We'll probably do another one, 6-8 months, kind of see where it's at. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who came to watch and who submitted a question. Hopefully, we got to all of the questions. We had a lot to go through. I did not think that we would have enough questions to do 2 hours, but here we are, 2 minutes to 8. Which is usually when I stop the game anyway. So, check out all of the other great shows on the Ulysses International channel. There's the Ulysses World Show where they talk about all the new products that are coming out. There are a ton of shows on Torg. Greg runs games on there. We have Eric who shows off Aventuria, as well as Myth, Dawn of Heroes, the new board game reboot, or not reboot, kind of an updated version of the old Myth board game. Ross and I did campfire chats for a while. If you want to learn about Myth, probably coming to the stream this year. And if you like what we do, check out Iconic Production. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitch. If you like Ulysses and what they do, if you like us and what we do, please consider following us on Twitch, following us on YouTube, following us on social media. We all have presences out there. And until next time, I am JM, your GM. These are 60% of my horsemen, and we will be back in 1 week. Wow, we're back in 1 week at the studio. I'm so excited. We'll be back in 1 week with more Torg goodness. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming, and we will see you next week. Have a good one.